Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Alrighty, welcome to Morning Shot. Latest out of America, the U.S. Department of Education has announced plans to slash about half of its workforce in what appears to be an intermediate step as President Donald Trump considers an executive order that would shut it down altogether. This follows just after Trump's recent joint address to Congress, where he repeated claims about wasteful spending, touted divisive executive actions, and said he's, quote, just getting started. In that speech, Trump doubled down on his tariff agenda, which has sent stocks sinking, businesses scrambling, and consumer confidence plunging. The address was marked by controversy. Trump was interrupted by Democratic lawmakers shortly after speaking, leading to Speaker Mike Johnson directing the House Sergeant-at-Arms to remove Democratic Representative Al Green of Texas. Several other House Democrats also walked out while wearing resist t-shirts. This dramatic display of division has raised a key question. Is Trump widening the political divide between the Republicans and Democrats? For more insights, we're joined by Bryan DeAngelis, partner and head of Washington office at Penta Group. Bryan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Let's start off with the education cuts, shall we? The idea of eliminating the education department has been floated by Republicans for several decades. Ronald Reagan, during his time as president, pushed for it to be dismantled in his 1980 presidential campaign. They've pushed against centralizing education policy, believing that it is best left up to individual states and localities. Why are they taking such a strong opinion on this, and what's your take on how the cuts are being carried out right now?
Yeah, this has been a long-standing belief of the Republican Party that control over local schools should be localized and left up to the states and individual counties. The challenge with that is it creates such a winner-take-all and, just a diverse set of who has funds, richer communities having better schools, poorer communities not being able to offer the same education. So the federal government plays a very important role in our education system in the United States. What Trump is doing now is, really trying to take action on that. What he's doing is just going around the rules that have stopped this from happening before. Congress is the one that decides how these agencies are funded, how the money, taxpayer money is spent in this country. And we'll see if the courts step in and stop him, but Trump's going to do everything he can in his power to kind of defang, to really bring down the Department of Education, and then, see how far he can push before Congress or the courts stop him.
Yeah, it does seem like that's the case. Following President Trump's recent address to Congress, many have pointed to an increasing divide between Republicans and Democrats. From your perspective, Bryan, how much of this division is driven by Trump's rhetoric, particularly his criticisms of Democrats' unwillingness to recognize his accomplishments?
I think a lot of it has to do with not only Trump's rhetoric, but his behavior. I mean, that speech was very unpresidential in the sense of he continued to attack former President Biden. He treats every moment like it's a moment on the campaign trail. He has a tendency to look at his political opponents not as, opponents in a contest, but really as enemies. And he treats them as such, and that sets a tone for the rest of Congress that I think just further divides not only, the two bodies of Congress, but really the American public as well. It pits us in a us versus them, where you're increasingly seeing it difficult for Republicans or Democrats, liberals, conservatives, to find that common ground and even get along on issues that used to enjoy broad bipartisan support.
Yeah, so what does that common ground or middle ground look like to you?
I'll tell you what it used to look like. It used to look like, the role America played in the global world order, the leadership role and the, beacon of light we were as that democracy, that shining light on a hill, right? It was about security interests, and there would be disagreements maybe around the edges, but you saw Democrats and Republicans get together several times over the course of history around what we need to invest in as a country to have a strong economy, how we need to, think about even educating our population, how we need to think about national security, and then, as I mentioned, global leadership. And, something like the, conflict in Ukraine enjoyed bipartisan support even a few years ago and is now a very hot-button, divisive issue in our Congress.
Yeah, another hot-button divisive issue is trade tariffs and immigration, which Trump doubled down on during his speech, promises of relief to working families. Do you think his approach to these issues is laying the groundwork for a successful economic future, or could it lead to more significant backlash?
My money, unfortunately, is on significant backlash. I mean, everything you're taught about economics and how the kind of global, trade and global capitalism has worked over the past several decades. Trump's literally doing the opposite right now. And, tariffs are going to come back to not just punish the countries that they're being placed on, but really hurt American consumers, American producers of goods. It's going to hurt our farmers. It's going to hurt companies that make goods already in the United States, companies that sell goods that maybe are imported from other countries. Prices are going to continue to go up, and this is going to hit Americans, right back in their pocketbooks and in their wallets. That is what led, in many ways, to Donald Trump's re-election or election to a second term. There was this increasing frustration with the way Biden treated the economy. Even as the economy looked good from a macro sense, people weren't feeling that at home. They weren't feeling it at the grocery store or the retail store, buying their kids, back to school supplies. And they felt that pain. And they elected, despite all they knew about Trump, to push Biden out and to bring Trump back. Trump campaigned on that. If he thinks that the American electorate is going to go along with his plan and as he said it, accept a little pain economically, I think he's going to be in for a big surprise.
Well, there could be a lot of pain internationally for Trump as well as America in terms of the long-term impact of policies like tariffs and protectionism on America's relationship with global trade partners. Is there a way you think to balance national interests with global cooperation, or is that not on Trump's agenda?
I don't think it's on Trump's agenda. I do think there is generally a way to balance this. And, whether you agree or disagree with some of former President Biden's policies, you did see him keep a number of tariffs in place, especially around chips and other technology with China. And that was not done in a way that felt overly disruptive to kind of global international relationships, right? Trump is taking a much more focused on punishing these other countries for what he perceives as them taking advantage of the United States. And just like we were talking about a minute ago with Congress, his rhetoric and actions make it clear, he's not looking to have a friendly negotiation about this or even a constructive dialogue about it. And that's going to force other countries and other regions of the world to realize, we're going to have to kind of think of our own self-interest, and we're going to have to position ourselves to be able to, withstand some of these Trump actions. And if this is going to keep happening every 4 or so years, we can't rely on America the way we maybe once could 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, speaking of which, it's still early doors. We're not even 2 months into Trump's second term. But considering his controversial leadership style and his approach to governance, what do you think his second term could mean for the future of American democracy?
I think there are a lot of folks that are increasingly worried about that. I'll say that I think it will be certainly a significant test for our democracy. The United States of America turns 250 years old next year. This is probably the biggest test since the Civil War, if not, one of the biggest tests we've seen in that 250-year history, partly due to the fact that there seems to be such blind loyalty, or at least a fear of standing up to Trump from his own party. And so if the Congress, which is controlled by Republicans, keeps going along with the way Trump is moving forward, both on his government actions and then, even some of the international and domestic policies he's implementing, if the judicial system doesn't step up to kind of keep it in check and we don't maintain that 3 equal branches of government with checks and balances, we could see some serious erosion into American democracy over the next 3 or 4 years.
All right, the biggest test since the Civil War. We've been talking about the U.S. Department of Education's plans to slash about half its workforce, as well as Trump's recent joint address to Congress, which seemed to widen even more the political divide between the Republicans and Democrats. This has been a conversation with Bryan DeAngelis, partner and head of Washington office at Penta Group. Bryan, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.